Hi, Kathy. This is my presentation on creating pathways to success. I thought I'd make a video since this is a presentation for a staff, in particular my staff. And so I guess first of all, I just wanted to talk a little bit about presentations these days. I think a lot of PD these days is criticized by staff for not really engaging in some of the strategies that as teachers we're being encouraged to use all the time in terms of the 21st century 21st century fluencies in general. So for instance, instead of actually making a presentation that's very active for the people who are taking part in it, it becomes much more of an information session, and what ends up happening is teachers are on their phones just like kids. So I just kind of down here, jotted down some notes on what a 21C presentation should look like, especially for a staff. If you're going to present a document, any kind of ministry document, people are going to be a little bit apprehensive. There's always going to be, especially on a high school, a secondary staff, teachers who don't see why it's relevant to them because they're very much dialed into what they're doing in the classroom. Not everyone, of course, but some people. So it has to answer a few objectives, I'd say. First of all, it has to be primarily active for the audience, so they're not on their cell phones. It has to engage the different stakeholders, so it can't be something that one department tunes out, like, it's only geared towards spec ed, or it's only geared towards social science teachers. It has nothing to do with the math curriculum, things like that. So there's got to be a real active way of making it seem like it's everybody's business. And that would be true for Pathways for sure. It's supposed to promote collaboration amongst the staff, and that can be tricky sometimes because it depends on what kind of collaboration you want, whether it's departmental collaboration or just kind of mixing and mingling different groups and different cliques in the school. But ideally, I think a presentation, if it's going to be long, and this one certainly would be if we're going to present this whole document, I think we'd want to have a little bit of all that. Be more than a series of information, as I said before. The information's all out there. Anyone can read this document, and to present it well as a movie, or as a play, or as anything that people are watching passively is not going to engage them. It has to be kind of broken down into more digestible and relevant pieces. And overall, as I said before, the form must not be hypocritical. So don't go stand up there and lecture people about 21Cs when the lecture as a form in itself is not a 21C, or is not a form appropriate for it. So the goals of my presentation would be, to have differentiated segments that move back and forth between some of the strategies I just talked about, to have collaborative opportunities that mix staff up, and that allow certain types of dialogue. I think I would want to make the pathways, and particularly part of it, based on, instead of just the document and an abstract document, something much more particular to the school. So I would frame it in the terms of school improvement and what we are doing now, what we are doing well, what we could do better, what could be tweaked easily, what we can dream about as a community. All of those things are relevant. And then lastly, I would want to find a way to give feedback, or sorry, rather get feedback. So I could pull up the document. That's not the document. That's the document. And I have all looked through all of it. It's pretty long, and I'm really going to focus on most of these sections, but quite honestly, I don't really think in terms of program development, implementation, and evaluation at a staff meeting or with a group of staff when they're getting introduced to this. This is something I would focus on because it is a lot of information, and really when you're going through the process, you're going to figure out how to do that. But if you're just learning about it, I don't know why I would spend a lot of time on that. So I kind of broke it down into 5 major areas. And then I kind of used a different strategy for each one. So the introduction of the document kind of talks about career development in the 21st century and the skills needed and the unknown of the future. So there's a bunch of YouTube clips that are great hooks. One's kind of dated and one is less so. And I just kind of brought them up as artifacts for you. I don't know if you've seen this one. It's from 2008, so it's a little dated. It's called Shift Happens, and it kind of goes through how, we're preparing students for all sorts of jobs that we don't even know will exist in the future. It's kind of got dramatic music, and of course it's a play on word that this is happening whether we like it or not. Shift happens, so we as an educational institution should shift as well. And then the other one, for some reason it's not pulling up, so I'm going to move on. Anyways, I have a second one which is a little bit more relevant. Anyways, there's thousands of these, but there should be no more than 4 or 5 minutes in length. Okay, the other one is Did You Know? And that's a little bit more relevant, but it's kind of another one. It lists a bunch of interesting facts about the digital world and how it's changing society and when we're going. And, probably people will have seen them, but it's still fun to watch. So that would only take 2 or 3 minutes. And then in terms of the comprehensive education plan, so that would be sections 2.1 to 3, 3.2, and 3.4. I think I would want to have some sort of small group carousel, because in this section we're really talking about different components of 21C, experiential learning, inquiry, and to each one of these could be a full day PD session. So what I would want to do is focus on just getting the information out there in a fun way where I'm not lecturing and everyone is moving around the room. So I might put pamphlets out at different spots and people could circulate, or just do a carousel like you do in a classroom where you put the information on the wall and they go around and they gather information. People can kind of mingle as they do it. It's pretty simple. Probably would take 7 to 10 minutes or something like that. And then getting into the next part, so 3.2, when we start talking about the 4-step inquiry that kind of guides the Creating Pathways to Success document, and guides students' self-discovery and then discovery of the world of work. I think I'd want to have activities that really, especially at the secondary level, that focus people's attention, maybe introduce them to 2 sources that I find useful. So the Who Am I, which is done often in careers and has to do with the IPP. I would introduce what I found to be the most interesting is an EQI test survey. I don't know if you've ever seen this one, but I don't think I could actually get them to do it, but I could probably at least get a group to read it. Ideally, I would find one that you could do pretty quickly and that people could kind of reflect on, and kind of devote maybe a half hour to it or 45 minutes. And so that they would actually kind of get used to it and see how they could use it with their own students and what it did. I mean, there's lots of different examples of tests that are not aptitude tests, but are kind of personality tests. And I like this one because it really kind of shows how, it has these categories like self-regard, emotional self-awareness, and how, these things are both strengths and weaknesses, and it's not really about whether you are this way or that way, but it's whether you are self-conscious of these and what you need to balance that out. And then at the same time, I think I would want to get an active session with my blueprint. So get a computer lab, have people go through it, maybe just go through the career or the post-secondary opportunities planner, look at the IPP, and show them like the potential for discovering it. If everyone already knew about that, maybe you wouldn't have to do that, but I still think we're in an era where not everybody is using my blueprint to its maximum effect. And then, so that would be kind of two sessions that went on. And, it'd be maybe a full hour, and people would switch back and forth between the two, depending on how big the staff is and depending how many computers I could get. So there'd be like two stations, and then they flip flop. And then when it comes to knowledge and skills development, a lot of what they talk about is, getting kind of embedding goal setting into everything. So I think, I'd show another YouTube clip, like a growth mindset YouTube clip. There's lots of these as well. I like this one. It looks kind of cool. Sounds kind of cool. It's very simple. It's a minute and 15 seconds. So it just kind of goes over the broad concept of why you need a growth mindset to get places in life. And and then after that, I think I would want to break into departments and talk about goal setting in a more specific uh, subject area. So a daily example of like a learning goal in a class, and then subject specific uh, goals for a day, and then learning skills. So make everybody kind of put the onus on them to do that and not spend a lot of time on it. That'd be like a 10 or 12 minute uh, process. And then the last part, you know, school improvement, 5.1, 5.4 talks about all these different ways that schools go about, helping students self-actualize and experience different things. So they talk about the guidance courses that are offered, the co-op programs, the SHISM experiential learning opportunities, the other experiential learning experiences like service trips, and of course community hours. And this is kind of a place where I think people certain people have vested interests, and some people just have more broad interests, and they might be dreaming about things. So again, depending on my staff, I might break it down so people had a choice of where they went. And I think what I would use for this is use a 21st century tool that most people know about by this point. There's lots of them out there. I just use Socrative a lot, and it allows us to kind of gather information as a group. So you put up an answer, like a short answer, like, so does our school community currently offer enough guidance courses, or could students benefit from others? So I might have a group working on that question, while another group, who's interested in schisms, or maybe a schism that, maybe the school doesn't have a schism. Say which schism would probably serve the interests of our students realistically based on the courses we currently offer. Have another group working on that, and then all the answers would be posted, and everyone could see them. That's kind of how this tool works. And then brainstorm or suggest ways to increase the kind of experiential trips, adventures the school has to offer, right? So again, different groups that they can post, everyone can reflect on after, share their knowledge a little bit. And again, it's a form of collaboration. It might lead to some heated discussion if you phrase the questions in ways that will get a rise out of people, because there's some controversy about it at the school. But it probably won't if you handle it well. And then the last thing I would want to do, as we said in our original goals, is get some feedback. So again, an easy way to do that using the Socrative tool is to do a ticket out the door. You can say in 3 sentences or less, explain your greatest takeaway from this presentation, and people could again post their answers, and you could see that if they got anything out of it. And in doing so, I think I would have covered, most of the information, and I would have done it in a way that focused on my own school and the school that everyone cares about, not just kind of presented as information. And it would have given voice to a lot of different people, and it would have introduced them to tools that they could experiment with and experience themselves. So overall, I think I would have managed to hit my objective. And I kind of presented this today in a less specific format, but it could easily be tweaked for a lot of schools, and easily be tweaked depending on how big the group was. So I hope you liked the presentation. I'm sure you'll give me some feedback. I should really take that down. And yeah, I hope that you think some of my ideas on PD are worthwhile. Thanks and have a great night.